Hi, this is Ron Ball. Welcome back to Choose Greatness, your keys to a happier life. We have had the best time going through this information on how to have super abundant energy. Energy is vital for life. Energy is an expression of health and zest and happiness. Energy is required for you to do anything. So how to have energy really matters. And I want you to have the abundant life Jesus promised you. Jesus said in John 10:10 that He came that you might have life and have it overflowing with abundance. And part of that has to do with your physical energy. You're a complete package. God made you body, soul, spirit, and that complete package should be an expression of happiness and health for your life. Now, again, we've had a whole series of programs dealing with how you can have more energy. I've dealt with many of the psychological aspects of energy, the relational aspects of energy, having great friendships in your life. And a number of you are already downloading the information. Let me let you know again that you can get this download, this audio download at choosegreatness.com. It's called How to Have Super Abundant Energy. Several hours of detailed, practical how-to information that you can start using today. ChooseGreatness.com, how to have super abundant energy. I'll tell you again when we get to the conclusion. But now I want to say a little more about abundant energy for your daily life. The Bible has great statements in the Old Testament on the abundance that God offers you in life. And one of the things God offers you is physical abundance. And there are many references in the Bible to food, a land flowing with milk and honey, the grains that are abundant, even God's gift of manna in the wilderness that nourished His people. Well, this matters for your energy level. You may not be eating right. Now, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a doctor, but I've carefully examined this information and tested it with experts in these areas. And so I want to give you just some simple information on two things that are basic for energy. The first is nutrition. I read a book recently called The Dorito Effect. Now, Doritos are the most popular crunchy snack in the whole world. Doritos were invented when a man who worked for the Frito-Lay company took his wife and children on a driving tour of the southwestern United States. He went through Texas and New Mexico into California, and while he was in Texas, he stopped at a roadside stand to eat tacos. Now, this has been a number of years ago when tacos were not that well known, and they weren't that popular because people were not really familiar with them. But this man ate the tacos, loved the tacos. So he went back to the Frito-Lay Corporation where he worked, and he said, we've got to manufacture this, and we have to take these tortilla chips and we have to send them everywhere. So they did a test and they totally flopped. Everybody hated the tortilla chips that they sold. Now, what was wrong? Well, the Frito-Lay company had made a big mistake. They made tortilla chips without flavor. I mean, they had the crunch, but they didn't have the taste. And so they quickly learned that people wanted to have taste, things that had explosions of flavor, and that was a big factor for what they chose to eat. Now, fast forward several years. The Frito-Lay Corporation is still trying to manufacture and perfect this product. And finally, they realized that if they added certain flavorings, maybe that would work. So they started with pizza flavoring. I don't know if you knew that Doritos started with tasting like a pizza, but they combined the Italian and the Mexican, and they put it all together, and that chip was the breakthrough chip. Everybody loved them. And now, as I said, Doritos are the biggest selling, most popular, crunchy, salty snack in the whole world. They outsell everything else. Well, something else happened a few years ago. In California, a special organization put together a chemical flavor approach. Now you say, what's this have to do with Choose Greatness or a Great Life? Well, hang on, you're about to find out. What they discovered was if they could chemically produce artificial flavors, those chemically produced artificial flavors, according to the book, The Dorito Effect, those chemically produced artificial flavors, if they added that to food, it would trick the human brain. It would fool the brain into thinking that what they were eating, what the person was eating, was real food when it wasn't. And so by adding these artificially, chemically produced flavors, they could make cheap food out of anything. They could make all kinds of cheap food that wasn't nutritionally valuable, that didn't have all the vitamins and minerals that God intended, and they could sell it a lot cheaper, make a lot more money, and people would have less opportunity to find real food. Now, this is what happened next. A lot of nutritionists have been trying to figure out why there is an obesity epidemic in the United States right now. Now, weight matters. Weight is very important. I don't know if you realize this, but for every 1 pound you are overweight, every 1 pound, that's not much. For every 1 pound you're overweight, it puts 4 pounds of pressure on your knees. That means if you're 1 pound overweight, and most people, if they're overweight, are a lot more than 1 pound. But if you're 1 pound overweight, puts 4 pounds of pressure on your knees. And that means for every 10,000 steps during the course of a day, that multiplies and multiplies until you put literally tons, not pounds, tons, thousands, tens of thousands of pounds of pressure on your knees. That's why there's been an explosion of knee replacements for older Americans, in particular, people around the world, because of all this obesity, this overweight challenge. Well, back to the Doritos again. What happened, the unexpected effect of all this chemical artificial flavor production, the unexpected fact or result of all this research and selling foods with all these artificial tastes, what happened is selling cheaper food with artificially induced flavors. By doing that, people began eating food that had lower nutritional value. So they weren't getting nourished. They weren't getting what the body needed. So because of the artificial flavors, the brain was fooled into thinking, hey, I'm getting good food. But the body wasn't fooled. The body wasn't getting whole food, real food, better food. And so what did people do? Because they were getting nutritionally deficient food, even though it tasted great because of the artificial chemically induced flavors, because it tasted great, they're getting reduced nutrition. So they eat more. They eat more and they gain weight. So it is a problem that is now beginning to affect millions of people, not just in the United States, but around the world. Now, it's very interesting. When you look at all these artificial flavors, according to the book, The Dorito Effect, and this is not my information, I'm quoting the book at this point. According to the book, The Dorito Effect, if you see a label on a package, a label of food, and it says natural flavorings, it's not natural at all. That's something they're allowed to say that's not true. When you see natural flavorings, you think, well, that's something that comes from nature. It's organic. No, it's not. According to the book, natural flavorings on a label really means that it is a flavor chemically produced to taste natural. That's a big difference. That's not a natural flavor. That's a chemically produced artificial flavor that's made to mimic nature. So even when it says natural flavorings, according to the book, it's not natural flavorings. Now, what does this have to do with your super abundant energy? Well, if you're not being nourished, how can you have super energy? If you're not being nourished physically and getting the vitamins and micronutrients and minerals that your body requires every day, then obviously it's going to affect your energy, your feelings of depression, you're going to gain weight. It's all going to have a dramatic effect. Now, Dr. Henry Lodge, medical doctor, brain researcher, says that for every pound overweight you are after the age of 40, now, some of you are not near 40, but you're getting there. For every pound of weight you are over the age of 40, all connected to not eating whole foods, all this poundage overweight over the age of 40, every year after that, if you stay overweight, your brain ages at a faster rate. Your brain ages at a faster rate. So nutrition affects everything. Nutrition affects everything. There's a Romanian doctor, Dr. Garagia. I'm not even sure if I'm even pronouncing it correctly, but I read his research. He since died, and he discovered a substance in food called nootropenes. Nootropenes. He discovered them. Nootropenes are like fertilizer in your brain. If you consume something with nootropenes, it means that your brain is able to decelerate its aging process. He says that omega-3 oils, most nuts, all have nootropenes. And I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not giving you medical advice, so don't misunderstand what I'm doing. But I'm just saying, based on that research, it is a reminder that God gave you everything you need for health. I believe that. God gave you everything you need for health, and you require certain things, and you need to go to good food to get those certain things. Now, here's something really interesting. The brain naturally, according to Dr. Erickson, the brain naturally, after the age of 45, the brain's ability to have good memory and good thinking process, youthfulness in the brain, diminishes by 0.5% every year after the age of 45. But listen to this. If you consume nootropenes, then your brain that process begins to slow down. In fact, his research found also that if you do regular aerobic exercise about 4 times a week, and I'm going to get to that in a moment, if you do regular aerobic exercise where you get your heart rate up above 20 minutes at a time and you really get your blood pumping, you work up a sweat, that actually causes your brain to actually improve by 2% a year. So not only do you overcome the diminishing of 0.5% with the nootropenes and aerobic exercise, but you actually grow your brain's ability to be youthful and energetic 2% every year. So this is really under your control. Do you want to have superabundant energy? Then remember the absolute priority of getting good whole food. In fact, my personal rule of thumb, and I'm not telling you what to do and what to eat. I'm not a nutritionist, not a doctor, so this is not medical advice. Don't misunderstand. You need to check with your own doctor on this, and you need to check everything out I'm saying. If you want to go get the book, The Dorito Effect, and check my research, that's great. Go ahead and do it. But what I'm saying is that I now operate on the basis that if something has a label on it, I try not to eat it. I try to get whole food. I'm not criticizing eating that. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. I'm just saying that based on this research, it tends to make me think that whole foods are better for me. And I know that when I do eat original whole foods that are in season at a particular time, nutritionally, I have an explosion. I feel great. I feel so much better. Now, if you look at the whole food phenomenon and how artificial flavors, and remember, natural flavorings are not really natural. If you look at all these flavorings that are tricking the brain, fooling your brain, make you want to eat more, makes you gain weight, all of that contributes to a drop in energy. Because not only does your weight affect your knees, I just talked about that, but it affects your energy level, your sluggishness, your brain, you have brain fog. All these things are affected by nutrition. Dr. Daniel Amen, formerly of Oral Roberts University, one of the most famous brain experts in the whole world, says that brain nutrition is the missing element for most people. That they don't understand that what they eat is so critical for the healthy functioning of the human brain, which is critical for your energy level. So, do you want to have superabundant energy? God in the Old Testament gave people whole grains, gave them great food, gave them all this stuff. Now again, this is not medical advice. I'm just saying that pay attention to what you eat. And I think that's legitimate counsel for any Christian who wants to have a great physical body, then pay attention to what this means. Nutritionists talk about what they call an aging process. And what they mean by that is they're talking about certain foods, refined sugars, a lot of white sugars in the diet, an overdoing of sugars in the diet, white refined sugars. According to nutritionists, these things contribute not only to being overweight, but also, again, here we go, back to the brain, affecting the maximum optimal function of the brain. So there's a great deal of nutritional science on the priority of your own ability to nourish yourself. A land flowing with milk and honey, to nourish yourself. God has made available in His creation what you need. Now, am I giving you specifics of what you should eat? Well, I do know some things. I've got a whole list. I've got a fascinating list of fruits and vegetables and certain berries and all those things, but I want you to check that out for yourself. I'm not giving you nutritional counsel. I just want you to be aware of why nutrition affects your energy. So, again, you're affected sometimes by your level of energy by what you eat. And according to the Dorito effect, whole foods, that's a major element in a solid nutritional diet. Now, I mentioned aerobic exercise a moment ago. Let me say something specific about that. According to the famous Framingham Heart Study, those people who use aerobic exercise regularly as they get past 40, your chance of high blood pressure, according to their study, drops 30% just because of aerobic exercise. This is your opportunity to increase your energy through getting your blood pumping, getting your circulation going, getting your blood oxygenated so that your brain needs oxygen every minute of your existence. Your brain needs oxygen. And exercise is the great enhancement of that brain growth and health. Now, let me tell you something very interesting. On April the 2nd, 1513, a Spanish explorer was off the coast of Florida. His name was Ponce de Leon, and he was looking, some say, for a legendary fountain of youth. Now, some historians argue that there was no fountain of youth, and he wasn't looking for it, and it didn't matter, and he didn't care. In fact, an interesting historical fact about Ponce de Leon is that he had recently married a woman who was 35 years younger than him. So maybe he needed a fountain of youth. Maybe that's what was motivating him. There was a tribe of Caribbean original residents in the Caribbean region, and they believed there was a fountain of youth somewhere toward Florida. So who knows what he was really looking for? Many societies have a belief in a fountain of youth. There are legendary stories of legendary rejuvenating waters from different cultures around the world, legends and myths. So maybe he was motivated by some of this. Even Alexander the Great, centuries before, believed he had found a river with rejuvenating youth energizing powers. Well, you know, all that's in mythology. All that's kind of fairy tale stuff. But Dr. Henry Lodge, a man I've already quoted, medical doctor, brain researcher, believes he has found a potential fountain of youth in every person. Now, I'm going to tell you about this. You can make your own judgment, but I'm pretty excited about it. Remember, this is on how to have superabundant energy, how you can maximize the world and life God has given you, how you can use what the Bible says in Psalm 139, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. Well, Dr. Lodge believes there's something within you in God's creation that can actually help you have more youthful energy. And here it is. There are substances, chemicals in your blood called cycloteins. And this is the way it works. When you exercise, when you lift weights or stretch or run and build your heart rate up, when you exercise vigorously at least 4 days a week, when you exercise vigorously at least 20 minutes each of those 4 times, when you do that and get your blood pumping, listen, you may be 25 years old, and because you're youthful, you think you have a lot of energy, but if you want to keep it, you need to understand what I'm saying about energy. So this is what Dr. Henry Lodge found in his research. And this is why he calls it a potential fountain of youth for everybody. So I cannot wait to share this with the Christian community, because I want you to be dynamic. I want you to live a long time. I want God to use you. I want you to have a great life and do great things for God. I don't want you to be messed up and stopped by your own inability to be physically able to function well. So here's what he found on these cycloteins. He found that these substances in the blood work like this. When you exercise, There's one of these substances which is known in medical science as C6. C6. It's released in your blood when you exercise, and it breaks down muscles. It breaks down muscles. That's why you get sore. That's why you're pumping along, running or walking or being vigorous, getting your heart rate up. And sometimes even your legs can get a little sore if you're not used to it, especially. And so these C6 chemicals are flooding, absolutely flooding your body, and they're breaking down your muscle fibers. They're breaking you down. But when you rest after aerobic exercise, particularly aerobics, when you rest, the body releases another chemical called C10. And C10 rushes through your blood and starts repairing and rebuilding. Now, here's what's fascinating according to Dr. Henry Lodge. What's fascinating is this doesn't happen unless you exercise vigorously. In other words, this breakdown, replenishment, rebuilding, rejuvenation process doesn't work unless you're vigorously exercising on a regular basis. But when you do vigorously exercise on a regular basis, wow, guess what happens? Your whole body on a cellular level is being renewed all the time. You're being rebuilt. It's what he calls a reservoir of youth, a real fountain of youth inside you. And he says, because you're exercising, the C6 is breaking you down, C10 is building you up, so you're actually getting new cellular action. You're getting new things being rebuilt on a cellular level all through your body, even in your brain, all the time. Everything's being renewed because of exercise. And Dr. Henry Lodge calls that a potential fountain of youth. Now, again, you are fearfully and wonderfully made by God. I don't want you inhibited in fulfilling the will of God because you break down too early in life physically. The body's made for movement. It's made for use. One of my favorite stories in the Old Testament is the book of Joshua, the story of Caleb, who's in his 80s and is still a mighty warrior. He's in his 80s, and Joshua says, what do you want for your reward, your inheritance? You've done all these military exploits for God, and you've helped conquer the land for God's people. What do you want? He said, I want to conquer some more. He's in his 80s. I want to conquer some more. And he asked for a particular area of that is what is now Israel. He asked for a certain place, and it was rugged, it was hilly, it wasn't easy, it was tough, and it had residents that were going to fight back. He said, I don't care. I want to go in there and win that thing. Now, wouldn't you like to be like that in your 80s? Here was a man who was probably fit. The Bible doesn't say whether he was or not, but he probably was. If he was able to do what he did, he had to be in great physical condition. So that foundation is built on a foundation of being aerobically fit. And I believe in my heart that was true for Caleb in the book of Joshua in the Old Testament. So you need to start now. Do you want superabundant energy? It is a combination. Now, watch what I'm doing. A combination of the right level of nutrition, vitamins, nutrients, real food. The right level of real food in combination with the aerobics that renew your body. Now remember the C6 and the C10, this is powerful. When you regularly exercise, get your heart rate up above 20 minutes, above a certain level, get your heart really up high for that length of time. Remember, the C6 is flooding your body and breaking you down. The C10 follows it in, builds it back up. Everything's renewed. Everything's renewed. There are 660 muscles in your body. 660. And when you vigorously exercise on a regular basis, C6 and C10 flood all 660 of those muscles. And so there's this constant fountain of youth renewal going on. And that, I think, is pretty exciting. Now, I've been running for over 20 years. And I'll tell you why I started. I was in a conference in Reston, Virginia, right outside of Washington, D.C. I had my wife, my family, children. I had all the things that mattered to me. I was serving God. I was preaching. I was teaching. I was doing great evangelistic rallies, like Billy Graham style rallies all over the world. I was very excited. I wanted to serve God my whole life. I wanted God to use me and bless my family. I wanted that with all my heart. And it all was threatened one day when I had trouble walking up a set of stairs. Did you hear that? I had 40 years old and I had trouble walking up a set of stairs. And I realized I had to do something. So I started running. I've been running ever since. I ran this morning. I do 30 miles a week. I'm very careful. Run every other day, walk every day. That kind of help my knees, but I run. If I don't run, I'll bicycle. I'll do something to get my aerobic weight up. I feel fantastic all the time. I have totally normal blood pressure, a sitting heart rate of 60. My cholesterol is so low it hardly charts. And my doctor tells me it's because I run all the time. Now, I'm not telling you have to run. I'm really not doing that. I'm not, okay? But I'm saying find something. Walk every day. I've had a good friend who lost 60 pounds because all she did, she told me this, all she did was cut her portions in half and walk 40 minutes a day. It's all she did. I want you to have superabundant energy. I want your body to be what God made your body to be. I want you to experience the best health possible. Now, I'm not a doctor, not a nutritionist, but I'm just telling you what I found that works for me and people I've worked with, and hopefully it can work for you. I just want you to have the best life, the greatest life that God wants you to have. I don't want anything to keep you from that. Now, I told you in the beginning, I'd get back to this, so I'm going to do it again. I want you to have this information. It is powerful and it's practical. Go to choosegreatness.com as soon as I'm finished and order the audio download, How to Have Superabundant Energy. Do it today and do it for your family and do it for God's kingdom. God bless you. Tell everybody about the show and I'll see you then.